Welcome to back to the RPO College Football Podcast. I'm your host, Jerome Jones, and I'm here with my guy, the man, the myth, the legend. You already know who he is, Mr. Ray Roberts. How you doing, sir?
I'm good, Jerome. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. Doing great. Great to talk about some college football. So, if you haven't been watching us, we've been doing a lot of draft stuff, but we're getting back to college football. So, all you college football fans, come right back in. We're back here, baby. We're back here. But I want to say before we start, hey, congratulations to Ray. Second baby just came. So he's a grandfather times two now. Want to congratulate him on that. How you feeling about that, sir?
Great. Happened Sunday, early Sunday morning actually, and got to see the baby a couple of times and spent some time today with Ryan, my son, putting some furniture together for the baby. So good days.
Definitely, man. Definitely.
Busy, but good.
Definitely. Congratulations on that, man. And obviously, we're gonna have some football little girls going rolling out for sure. All right, let's get right into it, Ray, because we can be talking about a lot of these teams. So we had a list of about 5 teams that we put on here. So we're gonna go straight into the teams that we're gonna be talking about today. But we're going to also let you guys know that we are going to be fielding teams from you guys. So if there's any teams that you guys want to us to talk about, we can talk about them. We're gonna break down each team conference by conference until the season starts up. We'll be getting some breaks in between as well. Do maybe some rankings and stuff like that, player rankings to kind of mix it up a little bit, but we will be doing team by team. Today we'll be doing Florida State, Mizzou, Northwestern, Iowa, and Appalachian State. So we're actually going to start with Appalachian State first. So Ray, Appalachian State coming off a 6-6 record, 4th in the East of the Sun Belt last year. Solid team. Obviously, they would love to be a lot higher than a 6-6 record. But Ray, overall, first and foremost, what do you think about this team?
Didn't have one of their better years last year.
Yeah.
Usually are a much better team than that kind of a record.
Correct.
But got Ryan Berger starting as quarterback for another season, and we'll see how it goes. They struggled last year on defense a lot.
Yeah.
So they need to improve that more than anything else. So,
Definitely. Yeah, like you're saying, Ryan Berger last the quarterback. They got a couple of other quarterbacks there. We'll see how he does. There, he's a big guy. 6'3". He's a little thin at the moment at 190. I'm sure he's gonna bulk up in the off season. A lot of good things with the running backs. Usually Appalachian State has some good running backs. They lost a guy last year. Cameron Peoples. So how do you think the running back group is going to be doing right now?
They have Nate Noah, who's there now, who's a nice little complimentary type back who's going to get a shot to be the number 1 guy this year. I think he's a good football player. Mm-hmm. Again, I think most of their work is going to be on defense. Their offense is usually pretty good, ran very well. So, that's where it's going to start for them. They need to improve their defense and be more consistent running the ball more than anything
100%.
else.
100%. And they've been a team that's been fairly balanced in my opinion. Obviously, do you think they'll be a little bit more pass happy this year, being that they're more younger running backs?
I do think they're going to throw the ball more, only because I think they need to score more points too. They didn't have a great year last year scoring either, but they just need to have a more balanced attack. They're going to start out throwing the ball because I think they're more comfortable with the quarterback than the running back situation right off the bat. So, again, it's really going to come down to what their defense can do, to be honest with you.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of the defense, they got plenty of guys on that defensive line that can help out. What guy stands out to you, Ray?
Andre Dingle Pierce, Prince, junior defensive. He plays 3 tech as a defensive end, because they play a 3-4 defense. Again, he's really the best player on the team. He's a junior, so he's been on the team for a year or two.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he's a good football player. I just think that, again, it's really going to come down to on defense. They were not good stopping the run last year. They need to improve on that. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard, though, because, again, you're playing a 3-4, and that is traditionally designed to stop the run.
Mm-hmm.
But you need to set the edge better. Don't let people get outside on you and create more explosive plays like your defense was susceptible to that last year. So,
100%. Yeah, and one thing I noticed about this team is it's fairly young on defense. They don't have a lot of seniors coming in, but to note a couple of seniors that they have, Braden Harrington and Andre Parker's two linebackers that they have coming into the season. What do you think about those guys stepping up this year?
I think Parker's a good player. I think he needs to step up again.
Mm-hmm.
I think Harrington is more of he needs to again, he's an outside linebacker, and he didn't play well last year against the run.
Correct.
I actually like Nick Ross, their safety. I think he's a good football player.
Mm-hmm.
I just think they need to get better play from their linebackers more than anything else.
100%. I agree with that. But yeah, I like the Builders team. What and we're not gonna get too deep into wins and losses, but Ray, we're gonna kind of go a little bit more on like better or about the same, maybe worse. What are you looking at from this Appalachian State coming into this season being at 6-6 last year?
I expect them to be a better team than that. I do. I think their coaches, they have a good coach. Sean Clark is a good coach. I think they're going to be better than that. I think, again, it comes down to their defense, but I think they're going to be better than that. I'm looking at their schedule right now.
Mm-hmm.
They have a fairly decent schedule. It's nothing great, but it's fairly good. They play Wyoming, who's good, East Carolina, who's usually competitive. North Carolina is going to be a big game for them. If they can find a way to, play well, Coastal Carolina is a good game for them. Marshall, of course. I mean, they need to play well against those bigger teams. That's all. Because they were really last year. They were the games that killed them. They scored 61 points in North Carolina and lost by 2.
Yeah,
that. You know what I mean? It just can't.
Yeah, that was a wild game, by the way. That was a wild game.
It was a great game actually, but
yeah,
great game as an outside spectator. If you're a fan of that team, you're like, wow.
Yeah. You could have won that.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. To get to the schedule real quick, and I will be reading off their schedules as well. So Appalachian State will be at home for their first game against Gardner Webb. They'll be at UNC, which Ray was kind of alluding to them, so they're going to be away for that game. They got East Carolina after that at home. They're going to be at Wyoming, at Louisiana Monroe. They're going to be at home versus Coastal Carolina, which is probably their biggest rivals every single year. They're going to be at
Old Dominion.
Old Dominion.
Which, again, is a big game for them because it's a game on the road, so that's a big game.
Correct, definitely. They're going to be home the next 2 games versus South Mississippi and Marshall. They're going to be at Georgia State. So that might be a game I might see if I can get into.
Yeah.
They're going to be at James Madison and home versus Georgia Southern. So I think, at the end of their season, they might have a slightly easier schedule, but early on they got some hitters, like you said, UNC, Wyoming could be a team that can, give them some trouble. Coastal Carolina, we already talk about Old Dominion. So in the beginning to the middle, it's a little tougher. I think at the end, you do James Madison plays hard all the time. Georgia Southern, they could win those games. Also, Marshall could be a tough game. So I think if they can weather the storm early, and come out of that maybe 5-1 going into Coastal Carolina. Coastal Carolina. I think they'd be at a good spot, but Yeah, 5-1.
I mean, if you look at last year's seasons,
4-1. Sorry. Go ahead.
They lost to Texas A&M. Of course, it's no big deal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they beat Texas A&M, but then they lost to Troy.
Yeah.
So you can't you score 49. You score 49 points against Citadel. That's great. You score 24 against Texas State, and you get up 36. I mean, again, if you look at their scores here, the games they lost, or they just need their defense to be a little better, tighten it up a little bit, and maybe a couple of them games that they lost, they probably could have won.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you don't expect them to beat Texas A&M, and they only gave up 17 points in that game, which is probably one of their better defensive efforts. But then they only scored 14. So
yeah, 100%. All right, so that's going to be App Station State. We do expect some better things from them, but there is some challenges ahead for them as well. Let's get to our next team. This is going to be Iowa State, the Cyclones. So last year, Cyclones finished the season 4-8, which was 10th in the Big Ten. And in the Big Ten, they was only 1-8. So against their own rivals, they did very, very bad. Well, in general, because they only had 3 other wins. But let's kind of get into the roster, Ray. Let's look at their quarterback positions. Obviously, the 3 quarterbacks that stand out to me: Rocco Bennett, Hunter Deckers, and J.J. Cole. Who's coming out with that one? Ray, kind of, you got 2 freshmen right there, and 1 junior is probably going to be Hunter. But what do you think about that class right there?
I think they're all nice, good prospects. I think Deckers will probably get the nod. He's the one with the most experience.
Yeah.
And I think he's actually a decent little football player. I do. I think that, again, if we're going to are they going to be better than last year? Yeah, but they only won 4 games last year.
Yeah.
I don't expect them to be that bad. And usually Iowa State is a pretty solid team. So
yeah. Yeah, I agree. They're definitely a solid team. They're going to be definitely looking into that. I know J.J. Cole is an intriguing fresh sophomore now, going into it, being at 6'7", 235 pounds. They might be intrigued by his size and see, if he can do something this spring. But I do think it's Hunter's job to lose right now. Like you say, he's the veteran in there. What do you think about the running backs, Ray?
I like Jared Brock. I think he's a good football player. Don't know as much about Eli Sanders. I know he's a sophomore. I don't know. I didn't see a whole lot of what he did last year, to be honest with you. But I do like Brock. I think he's a nice little football player. Their offensive line played sporadically last year, but they do have more experience this year. If I look at they have actually 3 seniors on their offensive line, which kind of surprised me since they didn't play great last year. But hopefully, I guess they'll improve this year. We'll see.
100%. Yeah, and to kind of get back on Brock, only having 3 touchdowns last year, I know he'll be a little bit more motivated to get into that season. I know he was injured last year with a foot injury. So, any concerns with that from him, Ray?
Of course, anytime the guy's coming off an injury, but I don't know how bad. It's not like the NFL where you get reports or I don't know any information on these guys right now.
Yeah.
But I just don't know. We'll see. I mean, I like him. I actually like Eli Sanders a little bit too. I think that he's a nice complementary type player. And I think they're going to need to use both guys as much as they can. So
100%. All right, let's get to their defense. Who stands out on that defense for you, Ray?
I like Jerry Vaughn. Their will linebacker. He's a nice football player. I like J.R. Singleton, the nose tackle, who again plays more like a 1A or a 3 tech, because they are again a team that plays like they actually play a 3-3-5 defense. So they play 3 linemen, 3 linebackers, and 5 defensive backs. And I don't
like my defense.
I like the principle of it, but it puts a lot of pressures on my interior safeties. guys that play in the middle of the field to come up and help with the run.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's good because I do have nice athletes back there.
Yeah.
It does put a lot of pressure on them guys to fill the gaps because the one thing I don't like about a defense like that is if you block two guys, you could make an explosive play on that team, on that defense. So
100%. Yeah. Being a team that is playing in a 3-4-4, I'm sorry, 3-3-4, no, 3-3-5, sorry. I'm bugging. A 3-3-5. Obviously you're gonna have to have some really good DBs. Who stands out back there for you, Ray?
There's actually two guys I like. They're both safeties. Bruce Freiler is a junior safety, number 17, and free safety is Jemiah Cooper. Again, he's the one who plays like the deep zone.
Yeah.
Freeland is a guy who's a more physical guy who comes up and helps out, support the run. I worry about defenses like this because sometimes it could leave the middle of the field wide open for things.
Yeah. No, you're right. Sometimes just getting too fancy with who you're blitzing in, who you have in the middle of the field, and you got to do a lot of that with a 3-3-5 to kind of cover up some of those underneath situations. So sometimes you do have to do that, but yeah, I totally agree with you on that.
It puts you in a position where you're hoping to get turnovers because you're playing more guys in your secondary. But also, if you can't run the ball and if your defense gets tired, it causes you to give up big plays. So,
100%. No, I agree. So yeah, if they run it right, it can be great. If they don't, then it can be problematic for sure. So.
I mean, Jerome, with playing especially when you guys were playing semi-pro, a lot of the semi-pro teams like to play 3-3-5 defense.
Oh yeah, yep.
They just loved it in them teams. I mean, I literally had to go home and study because I never saw anyone really play that before.
Yeah.
Well, you got to remember when I was a kid, no one threw the ball.
Yeah, it's a lot more throwing the ball now.
Basically, your safeties were like other linebackers.
Mm-hmm.
So now the difference is everybody throws the ball now. So you need more athletic guys back there, but it also puts more pressure on them guys back there to tackle.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah, and you definitely need a team that know how to tackle at all positions there for sure.
Because again, like with the 3-3-5 defense, again, it can be great if it's ran correctly. But it can create big plays in the run game if a guy doesn't fill a gap correctly. That's
100%. No, 100%. Yeah, I agree. All right, so let's get to their schedule for this upcoming season. Like we said, they were 4-8. So let's get into how they're going to be playing this year. First game, they're going to be at home for the first two games, playing Northern Iowa and Iowa, the first two games at home. Next game, they're going to be at Ohio. Next game after that, they'll be home against Oklahoma State. At Oklahoma, at home versus TCU. They'll be at Cincinnati and Baylor the next two games. They'll be home versus Kansas, at BYU, at home versus Texas, and at Kansas State. Ray, what do you think about their schedule, and can they be better than a 4-8 record?
You know what, Jerome? If they're much better than 4-8, I don't think it's going to be much better.
I agree.
They
look like they're going to have a gauntlet.
That's a really tough schedule, man.
Yeah, that's like a gauntlet.
That is. They play, like you said, Northern Iowa, which could go either way.
Yeah.
Iowa, it's a rivalry game, so again, it could go either way. But then they play at Ohio. That's probably a game they should win. They should win. I'm not saying they will.
Yeah.
I'm saying they should. But then they play Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, TCU, Cincinnati, Baylor, Kansas, BYU. They're not going to win any of their games probably.
Texas,
and Kansas State. I mean, really, you look at those, they could lose every one of those games easily.
Yeah.
So if you ask me, I think 4-8, 3-9 is probably about where they'll probably wind up, to be honest with you. Now, if they won 5 games, I'd be shocked. Of course not. It just means they have improved.
Yeah.
But if you look at that schedule as opposed to the schedule they had last year, last year's schedule was probably just almost as tough though. I mean, like you're in the Big 12, so you're not in a great conference, but you're just
Yeah.
not a great team.
100%. Yeah. I think they're gonna benefit from not having Oklahoma and Texas in their conference next year.
Yes.
But for now, with those two teams in there still, it's just making it that much harder for them to be better. Plus, the team is fairly young. I mean, they don't have the a veteran presence to their team. They're typically, most of them are coming in as juniors. So juniors can play very well. Don't get me wrong, but we're gonna have to see how they do altogether because being at 4-8 last year is not a lot of new players coming in. It's a lot of guys that's already been there. So that could be an issue for them.
Yeah, I again, Jerome, I don't see more than 3 to 5 wins, to be honest with you.
5 at the most.
I just don't really. I mean, I again, if they had a really, really good quarterback, but I think Becker's is solid. I don't see anything great.
Definitely. All right, let's move along to the next team. We're gonna go to Northwestern, who is in my conference, the Big Ten. Um, Before we talk about them, I just want to reiterate that we are going to be. If you guys are on here live, you can definitely put your comments, questions, anything you want to talk about. Definitely talk about them. We'll be getting to the bigger teams at the end, which will be Missouri and the Gators. So if you have any questions on them, start getting those questions in. We will answer them live on here as well. But let's get to Northwestern real quick. Ray, um, coming off a 1-11 season last year, very very disappointing season for them. Um, let's get right into the roster. First thing I want to talk about is Ryan Hiniski, probably one of their bigger names in there. I'm a guy that I had some high hopes for him. He's coming off a leg injury, so we'll see how that goes for him. What's your opinion on the quarterback room?
I think that you may see Brendan Sullivan give him a run for his money, to be honest with you. I mean, they have nothing to lose, Jerome. They won one game last year. So,
yeah.
I mean, turnover cannot be a bad thing when you're a 1-11 team.
Correct.
It just can't be. I mean, I look at their roster. I don't see anybody who really stands out that much. I like Xavier Mueller, the linebacker. I think he's a good football player. I like Bryce Gallagher, their linebacker. I like Sean McClellan, their defensive end. And I like Rod Heard, however, I'm not sure how exactly how to pronounce his last name. I think they're good, solid football players. They're not impact players, though. They're just good, solid football players.
100%.
There's Northwestern. They are a team that wins on effort.
Yeah.
But I don't see any outstanding players on their roster. I really don't. On offense, I don't see anybody right now who stands out. I don't.
Yeah. Definitely. No, I agree. I definitely see what you talk about, Ray. To kind of go back on Ryan Hilniski. He missed most of the beginning of last year, and then he came on strong at the end. Actually, the last 3 games he had all were he was 3-1. I'm sorry, 2-1 the last 3 games. And if you look at the scores, it was 31 to 21 against LSI, LIS. I'm sorry, SIL. Duke, they were 31-23, so they lost that game, and then they actually beat Nebraska 31 to 28, where Hanaski had a great game. Percentage was at 71%. He was 27 for 38, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. didn't get sacked in that game. So he looked really good against his own better competition at the end of that game. So definitely, I think that would be definitely an interesting situation with him coming back this season.
I just think again, I think that I would not be surprised to see Brandon Sullivan get to start not over him. He
Yeah.
played some last year,
Hmm.
played fairly well in
Yep.
some games, but again, I'm not laying the blame on the quarterback.
Hmm.
I think that when you don't play well around the quarterback, he's inevitably going to be the guy who looks bad.
Oh yeah.
And their offense was not good last year, not at all. But they're also a team who try to create balance. They try to be a balanced offensive team, but they just weren't last year. So
Definitely. No, I agree. Just want to get on one of the freshman wide receivers here, Reggie from Marina. He was a freshman last year, coming in his sophomore year. I think he can definitely come back and have a great season for them. He is a 6'2", 205 pounder. Probably going to be bigger coming into the season, so that's going to be very, very interesting to see. They got a guy named Calvin Johnson the second on our team. I'm not sure if he's Calvin Johnson's son, but kind of seems like it is. But interesting to see what he does. 3-star guy coming in.
yeah, I mean, I could see that where if the bloodlines are there, if he is related to Calvin Johnson, I'm trying to look at that right now to see if he is.
Yeah, I am too.
Okay.
Um,
You'll probably have an easier job doing it than I will, Jerome. So I'll let you take care of that.
Yeah, I'm looking right now. I don't see it, but I can't see why not. I mean, he's from Mississippi,
Right.
so I don't think there's any ties to Calvin Johnson. But I mean, we'll see. Got his name's
And the
Calvin
problem
Johnson.
they're both very common names,
Yeah, 100%.
first and last.
Oh
So
yeah. It's definitely it's definitely a chance that happens, but I don't see anything as of right now. I'll get back to you guys on
I
that.
mean, I think I love Pat Fitzgerald, their coach. I think he's a very good coach.
Yeah.
He just and then he's brought in some new assistants to help him out with the offense this year. We'll see how it goes. I mean, I root for Northwestern because they were one of the teams that play hard every game.
Hmm. Yeah, they're
He is
again,
at Nebraska last year, the first game of the year. But wow, that's a nice win for them. And
yeah.
they didn't win another game all year. So
Yeah. And they're a team that you can't sneeze on. I mean, like you said, Ray, they always play
they
everybody
play hard every game.
every game for
I mean,
sure.
even if you look at the games they played last year, they played really bad against Wisconsin. Played bad against Iowa. They played bad against Ohio State, but Ohio State's way better than them.
Yeah.
They're probably their worst loss was really against Minnesota and Illinois because they got manhandled in both of those games. But every other game except for Wisconsin game was pretty close.
Yeah.
I mean, like again, you don't get points for close, but it tells you that they play hard usually. So
100%. 100%. Yeah. So, all right, cool. So let's get into their schedule. So, they're going to be at Rutgers. They're going to against UTEP, UTEP. They're going to be away at Duke. They're going to be home for the next 3 games versus Minnesota, Penn State, and Howard. They're going to be away to Nebraska, home for the next 2 games, which are going to be Maryland and Iowa. They're going to be at home versus Wisconsin. I'm sorry. They're going to be away for Wisconsin, the game that they won last year. Wisconsin's going to be looking for revenge there, especially at their own house. They're going to be home versus Purdue, and they're going to be at Illinois this year. So with that record of 1-11 this year, Ray, better.
obviously they're going to be better than that.
They have to be.
No, they have to be.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at their schedule, though, Jerome, they'll probably beat Rutgers. UTEP could go either way.
Mm-hmm.
Duke, they lost to last year, but again, that was a close game.
Yeah.
I mean, they played Minnesota. That was probably Minnesota was like one of their worst losses last year. So I don't know how that game's going to go.
Mm-hmm.
But then they play Penn State, which they should lose to Penn State. But then they play Howard. They can beat Maryland. they'll probably lose to Nebraska. Nebraska's probably, like you said, going to be looking for revenge after losing to them last year, and it's at home for them. So, I mean, Purdue was a game they lost to Purdue last year, but it was a close game.
Mm-hmm.
Illinois was probably their worst loss of the year, 41-3 last year.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming they're going to lose that game. But even if them hit and miss type of games, like I said, Duke, Rutgers, Howard, Maryland, if they win 1-2 of those games, again, that's better than last year. So
100%. 100%. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I agree with that. Games are going to be close for them. I think Illinois might be a close game, considering all the players that they just lost during the draft. So I mean, and we're gonna get into Illinois sometime during the cycle, but yeah, I think they're going to be better than one win this year for
I mean,
sure.
you're talking about a team that came off a conference title game 2 years ago.
Yeah,
I
100%.
mean, it's not like the Pat Fitzgerald is a very good coach.
Mm-hmm.
If they do that again, I'd be shocked.
I would too.
Honestly, if they're not a 6 or a 7 win team, I'd be really very very surprised.
Wow.
I'd be.
Good praise for that.
I think they'll beat Rutgers, they'll beat UTEP, they could beat Duke, and then they could win all 3 of those games. They could lose one of them too. That's fine. But I think the worst case scenarios are 2-1 after that. Minnesota, Penn State will probably lose both of those games, or both teams are probably better than them. But again, after that, they play Howard, and then Nebraska, which is a tough game, and then Maryland, Iowa, Wisconsin, Purdue. Again, if they win 1 or 2 of those games, they're way better than last year, right?
Yeah.
I cannot going to believe that a Pat Fitzgerald team is going to be that bad 2 years in a row. I just can't.
Oh yeah. I mean, if that does happen, there's going to be questions about his job very first.
There is, and that would be surprised me because Pat Fitzgerald is one of them guys that you hear about getting. I know Notre Dame's talked to Pat Fitzgerald about going to Notre Dame a couple times.
Yeah. So, 100%. All right, let's get to our next team, which is going to be Mizzou. Missouri, for those that don't know, the Missouri Tigers. So their overall record last year was 6-7. They were 3-5 in the SEC, which was 4th in the Eastern Conference. A team that I think me and you had them being a lot better. Not a lot better. They're 6-7, so it wasn't like there was horrible, but they didn't have a winning record. And I think me and you were around that or close to that last year. I gotta check. But I think if I'm not mistaken, I forget what years it'd be sometimes, but I remember you was kind of having some high hopes for this team at one point. What do you think about this team overall now?
I don't, Jerome. I think they're better than that record. I do. I think they're going to be better than that this year. I think they have returning players coming in. I think Luther Burden is a nice wide receiver. I like Corey Strader as a running back. I think he's a good football player. We'll see how. I'm not sure about how the quarterback is going to shake out. They have Jake Garcia and they have Brady Cook, who both played last year a little bit. So we'll see how it goes. I just don't think that. Again, I think Missouri is a team who's better than that record was last year. I just think that they had some injuries last year and it kind of just steamrolled on them. So
definitely. Yeah, I agree with you. Brady Cook had an injury last year as well, shoulder injury. Sam Horn is an intriguing name in there as well. A guy from Lawrenceville, not too far from where I'm at right now. 6'4", 219 pounds. Big dude. He's a big quarterback. So I know they're going to be another big quarterback they're going to be interested in having playing there and being that mix. For the most part, all the quarterbacks are fairly young. Either they're going into their sophomore year or they're one going to the junior, who's Brady Cook. They do have another guy, Dylan Liable. Not sure. I'm not really familiar with him at all, to be completely honest.
no,
I think he might be a transfer, if I'm not mistaken. Looking into him now, but definitely we'll see how that quarterback room kind of plays out. Obviously, it always goes to the last guy that was in there. So obviously Brady Cook is going to be the one that gets all the looks at the moment to see, if he be the guy. But I think that's going to be a true quarterback competition at that position for this team.
I think so too. I think that if you look at their record, their team last year,
Mm-hmm.
they didn't really play. They played really down to their competition.
Yeah.
Way too much. I mean, they also play in the SEC, man. So let's not pretend like that's
Yeah.
not
Something to sneeze
tough.
at.
It's tough row in there, man. To be honest with
Yeah.
you. But I mean, they lost to Wake Forest. That's like really the only team in the SEC. They lost to Tennessee, not surprising. They lost a tough game to Kentucky, so they could play Kentucky this year. Kentucky has a new starting quarterback. We'll see how that goes. I mean, we'll see. I think they're going to be better than that record there. I do.
Yeah.
But I can't. I'm only saying it because I think that they're going to be just they can't get hurt as much as they did last year.
100%.
I shouldn't say that, but they had a lot of injuries last year.
Oh yeah, they definitely did. They definitely did. Let's get into the schedule for this year. I know a lot of their scheduled times are not completed yet, and sometimes that does happen. Sometimes they wait until almost the season to get the actual times. But the order is there, and it should be locked in unless something drastic happens. But excuse me. They're one of the rare teams that have that August 31st start. So they're going to be starting a little bit earlier than most teams. But they'll be starting the season out at home. The first 3 games. South Dakota will be the first game they play. They're going to play Middle Tennessee and Kansas State. They're going to be at home for the next 2 versus Memphis and Vanderbilt. They're going to be at LSU. They're going to be home for Kentucky. I'm saying this wrong. I'm sorry. They're gonna be away.
Yeah, away for Memphis, away for Vanderbilt, home for LSU.
Yeah, there you go.
At Kentucky,
home for South Carolina,
at Georgia,
Tennessee
at home, Florida at home, at Arkansas. I mean, that's a tough schedule, man. That's just
especially the last 4 or 5 teams. Actually 6. Actually 7, really.
I mean, they beat Arkansas last year at home by 2, so that's probably still going to be a close game.
Mm-hmm.
They got destroyed by Tennessee last year, but again, Tennessee's a different roster this year, so we'll see what happens. But they got destroyed by 66-24. So
definitely.
I don't think it will be that much different. They may compete better, I hope. Mm-hmm. But then they lost to Vandy in a close game. They lost to Florida. But they only lost to Florida by a touchdown. That surprises me a little bit.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, I think they're going to be better than that, though, Jerome. I do. I don't think their schedule is quite as tough as last year until the end.
Yeah.
So I think hopefully by then they'll get some momentum behind them,
Yeah, definitely. But you got to remember, too, I think the gauntlet really starts at LSU. They still all intact as far as, their big quarterback.
I guess really that's going to be – God.
No, you got Kentucky who lost their quarterback in Will Levis. You got South Carolina. They still got Spencer Rattler. You know how I kind of feel about him. He's so up and down, so you never know how that's going to be. Georgia's going to come in with a new quarterback. But historically they're just a good team. So we'll see about that. Tennessee, they losing their quarterback and Hooker, but they do got Joe Milton, who they are. I'm not going to say him. I am. They are very high on Joe Milton. Let's see. And then Florida also, who lost their quarterback and Anthony Richardson. So, I mean, the good thing is that a lot of these teams are coming with new quarterbacks. The bad thing is it's at the end of the year, so they can kind of figure things out.
Well, it's going to really their season is going to be, as far as if they're going to be, if they're going to have a winning season. It's going to be the first 5 games. If they go to South Dakota, play Middle Tennessee, Kansas State, Memphis, Vanderbilt, all winnable games, if they fare okay, they could have a solid season. Yeah. If they wind up losing 3 or 4 of those games, they're going to have a horrible year again. So.
Oh, yeah. 100%. No, I agree with that. So that's going to be Mizzou for us, man. Tough battle, but we'll see how it goes. And last but not least, we're going to go to Florida. the Florida Gators. Ended up their season very disappointing, especially at the end. I think there was really rolling and surprising a lot of people in the beginning. Ending the season at 6-7, and that was a 6-7 with Anthony Richardson. So we'll definitely see how this roster progresses from that after losing him as well. But they were 3-5 in the SEC, and uh, were fourth in the Eastern Division. So let's get right into it, Ray, and let's start with that quarterback position. I mean, like I said, losing Anthony Richardson is going to be a big hit. Graham Martz is there right now. I think that's probably going to be one of the leading candidates. They also have Max Brown. I know he was a highly sought over quarterback coming into Florida. So we see how that goes. What's your overall takeaway from this quarterback position?
They also have Jack Miller.
Yeah,
I think that Mertz will be the starter. I mean,
yeah,
I'm assuming there's a reason why he transferred there from Wisconsin.
hmm
I don't think that anybody promised him a starting spot, but I
yeah,
think he's feeling good because he has experience and played fairly well at Wisconsin last year.
hmm
I think that he wanted to go to a team that throws the ball a little more than he did at Wisconsin
yeah,
to improve his draft stock because he's a draftable player,
hmm
and I think he's hoping that he takes a step, playing for Florida. So
100%. Yeah. Running back room, a pretty solid running back room they got here. I know they're very excited about their young prospect and Trevor Etienne. Obviously, that's Travis' brother being in there. So definitely interested to see how that part of the running back room is as well. A guy that we interviewed, Tavon Webb is there as well. He's going to be a guy that going to come in and compete. Um, Eddie Battle's another one. Ray, what do you think about the running back
yeah,
position?
Montreal Johnson, they're a deep running back room at
Yeah,
Florida. So I think that again, Mertz, who went there thinking he's going to play in a quarterback friendly offense, and it should be fairly friendly of an offense. But I think he has a nice running back room to lean on.
hmm
Etienne is going to be an explosive player for them. And Montreal Johnson and Etienne actually are a really nice lightning thunder type of a combination. I think it could be dynamic. And I think that that's going to be I think Florida was too pass happy last year.
yeah,
They kind of relied on, Anthony Richardson too much.
and we
Practically
talked
too
about that
much.
last year too. That they were doing too much in the passing game with him. When
Yes, I
he
mean,
needed to,
again, it's Florida, and their defense is not great.
yeah,
But I think that when your defense isn't great, run the ball.
hmm
Don't put your defense in bad position. And you did that last year by trying to be a run and shoot team, basically.
yeah. No, I definitely agree.
So to me, you balance out your offense, keep the ball a little bit more away from your defense, and this way then they can't hurt you as badly.
Yeah, 100%. Um, Offensive lineman. I know one of the guys that I got to talk to is Keyshawn Harris from IG Academy. He's going to be coming in. Not sure if he's going to get a spot right away, but he's definitely a decent a prospect that can possibly put in right away if they can in that spot. What do you think about their offensive line in general, Ray?
I think Kingsley Eguiguen, the center, is really the only guy who's a proven commodity there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think any young guy that can come in and compete can actually come in and win a job. I
Yeah,
do.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, so he's gonna be an intriguing player. Very highly sought after lineman. Obviously, like I said, IG Academy, they produce a lot of good players down there. So he has a chance. He has a chance. Um, let's go to our defense, and I just want to point out another guy. One of my guys, Will Norman, who's also went to IG Academy. He's going to be coming in as well. He actually from Camden, New Jersey, and he transferred back to Camden to play his senior year. He'll be in there, so he's a very intriguing young prospect. Not expecting much from him right away. He might even get redshirted. But talk about the defense, Ray. What kind of stands out for you with this defense?
They're another one. They play a 4-2-5 defense.
Mm.
So they're only playing 2 linebackers.
Mm-hmm.
They have Princely Ellen, I believe his name. He's a jack player who does a little bit of everything for them, who's a really, really good versatile athlete.
Yeah.
But again, ask him to do too much last year.
Correct.
And ran himself out of position because he's a very explosive guy,
Mm-hmm.
but he will run himself out of certain jobs. I mean, like, so I don't know what to think about Florida's defense because they didn't play well for last year for stretches for a lot of different games. I mean, if you look at the scores, they gave up, 26, 28, 38, 17, 17, 45, 42, 31, 45, 30. I mean, that's a lot of points you're giving up, man. You need to take a chill, take a breath. Mm-hmm. Remember, you're Florida. You do play defense too, right? But last year, they do a lot of that. And again, they expected so much of their offense. I think they just expected to outscore everybody, and they tried, but it just didn't work.
Definitely. All right, secondary-wise, what do you think about this group? A young guy I want to point out also is Aaron Gates being at corner, a guy from Georgia as well. Very, very athletic corner. Could be somebody down the line to really help them. It's at 6'1", 190 at the moment, so very intriguing player for them. But overall, what do you think about the –
like 3 guys in their secondary. I think Jason Marshall, who's a corner, who's a good player. Mm-hmm. I like Kamari Wilson, who's a safety. And I like Jalen Hill, who's a guy who's the star guy. He's a corner safety hybrid who's a nice football player. But again, that's the problem. Most of your good players are in their secondary.
Yeah.
And it don't matter who's in your secondary if you're gashed up front.
Mm-hmm.
So again, you need to be a little more sounder up front. Keep your technique. Don't let teams gash you for yards because I love having good secondary. I mean, I kind of kid about this a lot, but I do want to have good players in my secondary. But again, if you're gashing me for 160 yards a game, it don't matter who's in my secondary because those guys, as much as I may need them to tackle, if they're making all my tackles, dude, that's not good.
100%. Yeah, and that's why another reason why I think Will Norman, who's again a young defensive lineman, I think he was a 4-star coming out of IMG Academy, might get that. You know, it might be a guy that you want to kind of look at. You know, these kids that are coming from high school, you don't know a lot about him. He might be somebody that can really show out early if he gets the opportunity. So.
Well, here's the thing. If Billy Napier doesn't have a productive year this year, he'll probably be looking for a new gig in 2024.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like he has a history with Florida, so they're trying to give him every opportunity. And if you look at their roster, man, they have talented players.
They do.
You need to get them to play well together is the problem.
Yeah, and they did a fairly decent job recruiting too.
Yeah, I mean it's Florida, man.
Yeah,
like you shake a tree and a good player comes floating around. It's just how it is down there, man. Like if you can't, the problem is for one, everybody recruits from Florida now. It don't matter if you're Michigan, Ohio State, Notre Dame, and other, Georgia, Oklahoma, Florida. Everybody recruits from Florida now. But you're Florida. You need to keep some of them guys in your own backyard because you're Florida.
Yep.
And it makes it even doubly tough because you got all them teams down in Florida too that are recruiting the same kids you are.
Mm-hmm.
But you're Florida, man.
Yeah.
I mean, like we say this.
Should be.
It's like you're Florida. It's like you're Miami, you're Florida State, you're Michigan, you're Notre Dame, you're Ohio State. You should have a good roster almost every year. At least a competitive roster almost every year.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to have down years, man. Everybody does.
Yeah.
You have years when things just don't go your way, like Missouri last year.
Mm-hmm.
Things just don't go your way. It's just how it is. But you are Florida. You should never have a losing season.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
It's like, you know as well as I do, Jerome. You're a Michigan fan. When we have losing seasons, we want heads to roll.
Oh yeah, whew, bro.
Imagine how they are in Florida, where they've been good, man. They've won national titles down there. They've had You could argue as much as Tim Tebow failed in the NFL, you could argue Tim Tebow is a top 5 college football player of all time.
Yeah.
Because that program has been that good.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So we got a lot to talk about with them, man.
We do, man. It's gonna be a fun year.
Yeah, they can make this could be a make or break year for them.
Only 91 days left to the first game, man.
Yeah, let's go. Almost there, man. So let's get to their schedule real quick. So Florida is another team that got one of those early games. So I think their first game is going to be very exciting because they're going to be
play against your team, man.
Utah, man. Listen, I'll stay away from a little bit more this year, but
you want to give us a prediction now, or
we're gonna say that for when we talk about that.
I got you.
Next game they're gonna be at home versus McNeese State. Never heard of that school ever in my life, so they should win that game. They're gonna be also next 3 games. I'm sorry, they're gonna be actually at home. Tennessee and then Charlotte. They're gonna be at Kentucky at home versus Vanderbilt. They're gonna be at South Carolina. They're gonna be at home versus Georgia, which is probably gonna be their best chance to beat them being at home, but we'll see. They're gonna be home for Arkansas, at LSU, at Missouri, and they're gonna be at home to close off versus Florida State. Ray, 6-7 last year. What is it going to look like for this year?
I'm going to go better than that, Jerome, but honestly, I only see 7 wins there, man.
It's looking around the same. It's
now, I will say, same record. It really
a lot of it is going to depend on the quarterback play. Now, he wasn't all world breaking type of quarterback. Let's just say that. And we already given him his starting out at this point. Can he benefit from a more talented roster? That's the question. We don't know.
And his strength is play fake, handles the ball well, gets the ball out quickly. And in an offense where you have running backs, he can be a productive player, I believe.
Yeah.
The problem is, I mean, again, they're playing in the SEC. Mm-hmm. They're going to be playing. The first 2 games are like games that they should win.
Yeah.
You probably will have more talented rosters, especially with Utah losing a decent amount of players this year to the draft. I mean, they should have more talented players than obviously McNeese State.
Yeah.
Then they play Tennessee. Now, again, they should whoop up on Charlotte. When they play versus Kentucky, they should beat Kentucky. They should beat Vanderbilt. They could beat South Carolina. They could lose to South Carolina.
Yeah.
They're not going to beat Georgia. They could beat Arkansas, but they could lose to Arkansas.
Yeah.
Again, they're probably not going to beat LSU. But they could beat Missouri, and they're probably not going to beat Florida State because I think Florida State's a little better than them this year. I do, but I think that's a winnable game. It's at home. You could win it. So, best case scenario, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Best case scenario was 8 wins to me. So I think 6-7, 7-6 is probably about where they're going to fall. But again, it's Florida. You should never have a losing season. It's that simple.
Correct. Yeah. They're a team that should be always, like you said, always have a winning season. They do work in the SEC, so we'll see. I mean, again, they do some solid recruiting. They can do some fairly good things. I think it starts and ends with the quarterback position and the defense.
It's funny because we just got done doing Northwestern. I think if Florida has a bad year, Billy Napier's fired, and Pat Fitzgerald is hired for Florida.
Okay. If he has a better year than last year, too.
We'll have a better year than last year, and he'll still have the idea that he plays in a fairly good conference, and he doesn't get top-level kids. He doesn't. He gets guys that outwork other teams, which is great, but he doesn't get top-level kids. I'm not saying he gets bad kids either. He doesn't. what he gets is he gets good student athletes who are good, solid football players who outwork other teams usually.
Yeah.
So you put a coach like that in Florida, where you
can at least even just improve by like 2 or 3 games and then be competitive in the other games.
I would like to see what Pat Fitzgerald could do on a talented roster.
Yeah.
I know what he's done at Northwestern. He's overachieved. Now they had a bad year last year.
Correct.
But again, they're coming off of what it was either 2 years ago or 3 years ago. They played, I believe, Michigan in the Big Ten championship game, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not like it's been like that long since they were good.
Correct.
Mr. Gerald is a good coach. I would love to see what he could do in a big time program. I would.
No, I agree. That would be very interesting. Napier.
When Brian Kelly first lost his job, before they hired, they stayed within. I really wanted them to Marcus Freeman, who I like Marcus Freeman, but I wanted Pat Fitzgerald as Notre Dame coach. I did. I think he's a good coach. I think that, and saying that, I don't think he can do a better job recruiting than Marcus Freeman has done. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not. But I think as a coach, I think Pat Fitzgerald is a top 10 coach in college football, without a doubt. I would like to see if he could make it into the top 5 if he had better talent to work with. That's all.
Definitely. Yeah, I think it will be very interesting to see how this season.
I would love to see if Jim Harbaugh ever were to leave Michigan, I would like to see what Pat Fitzgerald could do there at Michigan.
Ooh, that'd be good. Yeah, that'd be. I mean, I don't see that anytime soon now.
No, I mean, because Harbaugh's played it, has been a good, has done a good job, and like you only hear whispers now about him leaving Michigan.
Correct.
And that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And maybe if he keeps turning enough jobs down, maybe people will just go away.
Yeah.
Because I don't think Jim Harbaugh is dying to leave Michigan. I think he was thinking about a couple years ago, like Nick Saban probably every once in a while was like, probably thinks, man, I would going back to the NFL kind of intrigues me a little bit.
Yeah.
And then they're like, no. I'm good where I'm at.
Yeah. Why not at least get that interview, kind of go feel for what the organization is looking for?
If you look at Nick Saban's resume, we've talked about this before. The only blemish is that he did not succeed in the NFL.
Yep.
He did.
Yep.
You can't say anything else bad about Nick Saban, except for that.
Yeah.
And it's only a 2-year sample size too. So
yeah,
like you could say as a defensive coordinator, he was good with Cleveland.
Yeah. So
I mean, like that's the only blemish on Nick Saban's career is he was in the NFL for a couple of years and he didn't. He had a winning record the 1 year, and then the next year had struggled. And well, I mean, honestly, I would like to see what would have happened if they would have gotten Drew Brees the year they tried to get him, to see maybe if that would have happened, maybe Saban would have thought differently about the job, but it didn't happen. So he just, and again, man, he's a great coach. I just think I think Jim Harbaugh was this close to winning a Super Bowl. And if he'd have won that Super Bowl, there'd be no chance of him ever leaving Michigan.
Oh yeah.
But because he didn't win that, but you know what? I think if he won a championship with Michigan, that would be when he goes back to the NFL.
I can see that. I
did what I told my alma mater I was going to do. Now I'm going to go see if I can actually hang with. Because you know what? You could argue he was a good coach in the NFL, man.
He was.
People can recreate history as much as they want and say, oh, yeah, well, he had a really talented roster in San Francisco, and he did. But I remember that talented roster won 4 games a year before he got there.
Oh, yeah.
Let's not forget about that, okay?
Mm-hmm. You got to remember Mike Singletary was the coach right before.
Correct. Before we talk about how much Alex Smith played, how well he played under Andy Reid, and he did. But before that, people thought he was a bust in San Francisco. And then Jim Harbaugh went there and got him to play really well for 2 years.
Oh, yeah. And it wasn't until, Jim Harbaugh decided to pick Kaepernick in. And even then, Alex Smith was still having a good year. He wasn't.
No, I think, it's funny. I think that he saw a bigger, stronger version of a quarterback and thought You know what, Jerome is in the. I know we're getting way off of the program here.
Yeah.
But when San Francisco's quarterback got hurt and they put Brock Purdy in and Brock Purdy played well, I had some friends say to me, "Oh, well, what do you think the 49ers are going to do for a quarterback now?" I'm like, "Play Brock Purdy."
Yeah.
They're like, "Well, no, they can't just. They're a good team. They can't just rely on that young quarterback." Why not? You have a guy who's got talent, and you have no game film on him. So get him prepare. And then next week, you better prepare for something different because you know they're going to do something different next week.
Oh, yeah.
Then the week after that's going to be something different than that. And they play good defense and they have a good running game. So
it makes sense. It makes sense.
It just made sense to me. Again.
It was better for me at the time. So
I mean, man, it's hard to prepare for somebody you can't watch.
100%. You're right. You're right. So that's gonna do it for us for the team evaluations. Before we get off, Ray, we have our Ray rant for today. I don't know if you have anything, Ray, but go ahead.
I do, and you know what? I'm really going to get off the wagon here. People are going to be like, "Uh-oh, it's not going to be bad. It's okay. It's not going to be bad. You calm down." I'm not going to say anything that's going to offend anybody. I'm not, okay? I don't really think I ever offend people to begin with, but I do. There are probably some people. But no,
your line sometimes.
I mean, I know Ravens fans probably hate me at this point, but I'm good.
Yeah, they do.
No, I'm fine. I mean, I know a couple of Ravens fans where I work at. They don't like me very much right now either, but it's okay, man. I'm good. No, I am almost as much of a music fan as I am a sports fan. I don't know. I know you kind of have a feeling for that because we talked about this.
100%, yes.
But there's been a couple of people that died. Tina Turner just died recently.
Yes, Tina Turner, man.
So, I mean, Jeff Beck, who's a great guitarist, died just recently. And it was nice to see them have – what's that?
I thought there was one other person. Am I mistaken? Or
Tina Turner, Jeff Beck.
Somebody. I don't know if there was an actor or something. Like somebody just – another person passed away. I know it just happened recently.
I don't know. I'm again – thinking of music now, so Anyway, and I was nice to see that they did a little thing for Tina Turner, like a few different people have. They did a nice thing for Jeff Beck. Here's my thing: I don't know how many people out there are Van Halen fans. Eddie Van Halen died like 4 years ago. They have still not done anything for this guy. No salute, no nothing. And I know it's because the Van Halen camp, none of them like each other.
That's what I was going to ask. Because
Alex Van Halen doesn't like Sammy Hagar. He doesn't like David Lee Roth. I'm not saying he doesn't respect them. I think he does, but he doesn't like them. I think there was a lot of bad blood in Van Halen before Eddie died, and then obviously Eddie dying didn't help anything. And I hear Wolfgang Van Halen, who was Eddie Van Halen's son, say, he even said it was nice to see everybody go out there and do something for Jeff Beck and blah, blah, blah. Well, this is for Wolfgang Van Halen, who I'm sure won't listen, but this is for Van Halen fans too. Wolfgang, if you want to do a salute to your father, go out and do it.
Yeah, why not?
If the other members of Van Halen don't want to be involved, too bad. He's your dad.
Yeah.
I mean, I would, honestly, if it were me, I'd be calling my Uncle Alex as your Uncle Alex. I'm going to do this thing for my dad. And if you want to be part of it, or if anybody else who's part of it wants to be part of it, that's great. And if you don't, he's my dad. I'm doing it.
100%.
Okay, so it's that simple. They need to do something for Eddie Van Halen. Yeah, man, if you don't, he's all made a lot of money, so don't worry about the money. Donate it to cancer research, which killed him.
Yeah, why not?
I don't understand. You know who else? Christy McVie just died not that long ago.
Who's that?
Singer from Van Halen. From Fleetwood Mac. She died a few months ago.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Piano player and singer. But again, they've done salutes to her. The members of Fleetwood Mac. Other people that were fans of hers have done.
Oh, I know who it is.
Who's that?
Jim Brown.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're on a football show. We didn't do nothing about Jim Brown.
Jim Brown. Yeah.
Well, back when Syracuse was a big-time program, Jim Brown went there.
Yeah. No, yeah. Jim Brown's legend. Obviously he's known for his what he did on the field. One of the probably the best Brown player ever, honestly.
Not
Hall of
probably.
Fame running back. Got into acting late into his career after he retired.
If you talk to anybody who watched football before 1980 when it changed into a passing game, they'll tell you that Jim Brown's the greatest football player ever lived.
100%. Yeah.
I mean, he was the Mr. Brown.
A huge
very huge activists for civil rights and
always
everything.
The organization.
Always, you know what? Just a great player, a great man, and honestly, a legend, basically. I mean, Jim Brown's a legend.
100%.
I mean, he's not, and honestly,
he was one of those guys that were a Hall of Famer, but still came around and taught the young guys.
You know what he is? He's Wilt Chamberlain in football.
There you go.
That's what he is. He's Wilt Chamberlain in football. Certain guys are just no one is bigger than the sport, but there are certain guys that are really, really close.
Yeah.
And Jim Brown was one of those guys.
100%. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and sometimes those guys are a little bit more important than just the football aspect of it.
Correct. Because of Jim Brown him going to college and when he did, at the times when he did where, not every black was accepted into colleges back then. Well, at least certain colleges anyway.
Yeah.
Syracuse St. Gal was not one of those teams because they were just looking for football players. So good for them.
Yeah.
But Jim Brown is he's the guy, man. Again, that's the funny thing is you can't even think of another football player to put. You can say Tom Brady's the greatest quarterback of all time.
Yeah.
Joe Montana, you can say whatever you want. But if you ask anybody who's the greatest running back of all time,
you got a few, but Jim Brown will be
honestly
nowhere.
If you ask me who's the greatest running back I ever seen, it was Walter Payton.
Yeah.
If you ask me who I think is the greatest running back, and I'm going to tell you the same reason why I would say, man, there are certain people I go to. And when I go to Ray Dinger and he tells me that Jim Brown's the greatest football player of all time, Jim Brown's the greatest football player of all time. When I ask a person about basketball players and Sonny Hill tells me that Wilt Chamberlain's the greatest basketball player of all time, I'm going to say Wilt Chamberlain's the greatest basketball player of all time.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. No, I agree, man.
There are just certain people that, because of Ray Dinger being a Hall of Fame football writer and Sonny Hill being Mr. Basketball in Philadelphia, I take their word.
Correct.
Sorry.
Correct. No, I totally agree with that. And, obviously seeing what he did on the field, obviously old film and stuff like that. And, I know film and all that was different back then, but.
Well, here's the thing. Here's what people would say. If you watch Jim Brown play back then, he was bigger than most of the linemen.
And faster.
Yeah, and faster than everybody.
Yeah.
But you know what? That doesn't decrease the fact that he was still, because I believe, I know the word evolution is dirty to some people because that has some thing where you don't like the word evolution, but we all understand that people evolve as we get bigger, stronger, faster.
Oh yeah. Technology.
Well, Jim Brown built in the early 40s. If Jim Brown was born in the early 70s, he'd be bigger, stronger, faster than everybody on the field still.
Yeah.
Okay. He'd be Henry. Probably more athletic and faster though.
Derrick Henry, yeah.
Yeah. Again, man, I hate because that's the thing. It's hard.
You gotta remember too, guys like Jim Brown, even though he's in the era that he is, he paved the way for players to be like that nowadays. You get what I'm saying? Without Jim Brown, you don't have that same kind of mold, that a Jim Brown would be. So
Jim Brown was as big as and intimidating as Earl Campbell was in the 70s, but stronger and more athletic.
Yeah.
People get mad when I say LeBron James is a great basketball player, but he doesn't move as fluidly as Michael Jordan did, dude. He just doesn't.
No.
I'm sorry if that offends people. He just doesn't. Wilt Chamberlain, again, I hate to go back to Wilt because, again, was bigger than everybody else in the league then, was stronger than everybody else in the league then. And if we're born in the early 70s instead of the early 40s, be bigger, stronger, faster than everybody on the court right now.
Definitely.
I mean, like I love Charles Barkley, and because I just think him, and even though I'm not always sure that him and Shaq like each other. I'm not sure how that goes. Sometimes it seems like they don't like each other, but at least they have some kind of respect for each other. I think, but I just love it when whenever Shaq talks about like greatest centers of all time, I remember Charles Barkley saying like, "No, Shaq, Wilt's better than you."
Yeah, no, for real.
I mean, yeah, man. Again, it's a tangent because Jim Brown was that guy in the NFL for 40 years. No one was better than Jim Brown. So, I think if you asked Walter Payton if he were still alive, he'd tell you he wasn't better than Jim Brown. Okay?
Oh yeah. So yeah.
That was
So
a long rant. Sorry, man.
no. I'm glad we talked about it because we were both not even thinking about Jim Brown until we got down to it, and I was like, I know somebody else just passed. I know it wasn't. I wasn't sure who it was. I wasn't sure if it was a musician. Jeez,
Musician,
words
yeah.
are hard. Words are hard, guys.
Yes.
But I knew that it had to be somebody, and it was Jim Brown, and it's a perfect segue to end this this podcast. Maybe we could do Syracuse next week to kind of do
we can do Syracuse next week.
Yeah, let's do
Let's do the greatest player on Syracuse history, Jim Brown.
Yes, sir. Let's get Syracuse in there for next week as a tribute to Jim Brown. So if you want to definitely see that, make sure you come check us out next week on the RPO podcast. Ray, look, you need something.
You know what's funny though? You think about Syracuse, you think, man, okay football program. Jim Brown, Larry Zonka, Donovan McNabb, Marvin Harrison, dude. And who was it? Freeney. Wait, Freeney went to Syracuse too, correct?
Wait, did he?
I think.
You might be right about that.
So, I mean, like, you think about Syracuse and you think they're not a great football program, but they've
take basketball.
They've had their of course. No. Yeah, I've been there since I was like 7 years old. It's crazy.
Hey, the next great Syracuse player, Sidney Brown. Let's go.
Okay, I got you.
Oh man, as an Eagles fan, as I got my Eagles stuff on.
I got you.
Just kidding. But hopefully, you never know. But hey, that's gonna do it for us today, guys. Hope you enjoyed this episode. We're gonna, like I said, we're gonna be fielding any teams that you guys want us to talk about. So definitely check us out next week. We'll definitely be doing that tribute for Jim Brown. We're doing the Syracuse next week as well, covering their team. So if you want to see that, make sure you come check us out, especially on YouTube. You can find that QR code right there where Ray is, right at the bottom, right over there. And if you scan that, you can be able to see all our social media. You can go on our YouTube channel. Definitely like and subscribe on there. We got some great stuff going on. Interviews. We got some nice shorts that you might want to watch. Some cool kind of history stuff on there. I think the last thing we did was the top 5 missed calls in the NFL history. That kind of went a little viral, so that was a really fun little video that we put out. So make sure you go check us out, check all that out on our YouTube channel as well. Doing some great stuff on there, trying to grow. So definitely.
From last week's podcast?
No, that wasn't a podcast. That was just a short. So Ray, I'm not sure if you know what a short is, but it's like a short video. Basically, they call shorts on there, and basically we've been doing
Super Bowl history.
Not Super Bowl in NFL history. It did involve a couple of. I know the Tucker was one of them on there. It had the Saints call when Roby, I forgot his full name, but the Rams player hit the Saints player right before that touchdown. Let the Saints.
They had to play from last year's Super Bowl.
No, they didn't. We didn't have that on there. But it was a couple of other ones like that. It was pretty cool. I know we did the top 5 catches in the NFL history. That was pretty cool. So definitely go check it out. It's on our YouTube channel. So if you want to go check all that out, YouTube channel is also on TikTok if you want to see them on there as well. fun, cool stuff. Good conversations on those as well. So again, that's gonna do it for us today. I'm Jerome Jones. This is Ray Roberts. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We'll see you again next week. Have a good week and enjoy yourself. Peace.